This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everybody. Jordan Girth here with the National Weather Service Office of Observations. Thank you for joining us for the Satellite Book Club Seminar Series. This is session number 128. Happy 2023. Hope your winter is going well. Today's presentation is AWIPS Cloud Projects. Our presenter is Scott Jacobs, the Product Improvement Manager with the AWIPS program. The discussion after the presentation will be facilitated by Frank Ulsheimer, Science and Operations Officer at the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Columbia, South Carolina. As you just heard, this session is being recorded. We will have an opportunity for Q&A after the presentation. We also encourage you, if you are asking a question in the chat, please specify your full name if you're logged in with an office account, and that will help us follow up if necessary. We're also looking for future presenters for the book club. So if you'd like to present, perhaps you recently presented at the AMS, please get in touch with our team. We'd love to have you. And if you're looking for training materials, Brian Mott at the Office of the Chief Learning Officer can help with that. I'd like to thank our TowerS team, particularly Kashad Bowman and Lee Byerly, the Office of the Chief Learning Officer, and the GOZAR and JPSS program for their support. And of course, thanks to our facilitator today and all of you for being with us. We are over 100 attendees, which is just fantastic. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Scott Jacobs, who obtained his atmospheric science degrees from Millersville University and State University of New York at Albany. His research area was cloud electrification, but he jumped headfirst into software development and spent 23 years developing for GEMPAK and AWIPS. Scott has been with the AWIPS program since 2016, first as the systems architect and now as the product improvement manager. Scott, this is your first appearance at the Satellite Book Club. We're glad to have you.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, everyone. So, yeah, I'm here to talk about the AWIPS cloud projects that we have going on. We have a couple of things, and so where do we fit in? So everyone's heard about Ken's top 10 things that he has that he wants to do, and CP, Central Processing, and the AWIPS program are involved in quite a few of them, one of them being the AWIPS in the Cloud project. We have lead roles in others, and we're working on other many of the others. So what are our projects? So the first thing that we have two big goals for the next few years. In the short term, we're looking at this lift and shift idea. And we've actually been doing this since late 2019, when we started working on getting developers moved to a cloud-based system because our hardware was basically failing. And then 2020 hit, and we had to move to a cloud-based system because the developers didn't have access to their physical computers anymore during the COVID lockouts, if you want to call it that. So then we worked on that, got the developers really going on using the cloud systems, and then we started to branch out into some testing to look at targeted functionality like hazard services or NAWIPS. Recently, we started working on shapefile testing before the shapefiles go out. So the other thing that happened through all that, we did some certain support activities. We did the Republican National Convention weather support for that. And so we got the idea that we could use the cloud for IMETs, and OPG ran a couple of tests, and those worked out really well. The IMETs were able to take a small laptop, go out into the field and connect to the cloud and do a lot more than they could with the thin client. So our next step in the short term is to get the IMETs set up in a more operational environment. So far, we've been using more of a development and testing environment. So this will be supported. it will be monitored and fixed as soon as a problem would come up. So then the idea really is to get the IMETs first to stop using the thin client and move to this cloud platform. And our goal here is to get the environment set up by around the end of March and start onboarding the users around the end of June and finish that up throughout the fourth quarter, adding more users as we go. So that's the short term. The long term is completely different. And that's more making AWIPS much more cloud native, cloud friendly. So we've been started working on a refactor project to work on the baseline software to turn it into microservices, where the current is called a service-oriented architecture, but it's big services. So this idea would be to break that down into even smaller pieces that could be maintained much more easily and updated independently. So the other thing that this gets us is it allows dynamic scaling. So if right now we set up EDEX and we say it's going to run on X number of servers, depending on your office type. With the microservices and that whole orchestration type situation, we can say, okay, more data, more grids are coming in now, so spin up more grid processing services to get that stored or processed in some way to run maybe smart inits, things like that. And then as the load goes down, then it scales back so that you have less cloud resources being used. So on this slide, there's lots of other challenges besides just the code refactoring. So we have data flows. Right now, as many of you know, a lot of data flows through the AWIPS hardware. We have observational data, all the radar, the ASOS, the upper air data from the radiosondes all come into AWIPS and get sent out. All the WFOs manage their own weather radios. So you have data going out that all rely on the AWIPS hardware and software to make all that run. So that needs to be rethought. We need to look at, if we're running operations in the cloud eventually, then we need to look at how to get the data to the cloud rather than through an AWIPS piece of hardware. So that's going to really lead us into the network and making sure the network is really robust, able to handle the operational load that's now going to be called upon for it to support. And then all of you, the workforce, this is going to take a lot of training, a lot of making sure that everyone knows what's going on and where they can contribute and how they can contribute, and so that we're all pulling in the same direction to get out to a cloud-based system. And the goal here is to have basically everything done from the refactor point of view, and then moving into some of the other projects in that 3 to 4 year time frame from now, so that as we move into into 2027, 2028, we can have all of the contract information put together so that we can bid out the new AWIPS support contract. So that's where we're headed. We're trying to get done quickly, relatively quickly, so that we can get to that point that all of the all that work can be done on the contract side. So just wanted to summarize some of the timeline here and get into, so we've started the refactor project. We started that at the about a month ago, almost 2 months ago. And they've been working on getting all of the project stuff prepared. And we're going to start working on code within the next month. Now, while that's going on, we have the short-term stuff going on, and we're going to create that operational cloud environment and onboard the IMETs before the end of this fiscal year. The other thing, as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, we're going to start looking at the refactor project and how we can start testing it as the coding starts to get done, get all of the integration work going. And my goal here is by next year at this time that we can actually have users on that new cloud system starting to test select functionality as it gets finished. And again, with the goal here being to complete that code refactor by around 2020, FY26, basically the end of calendar 25, so that we can then do the contract work and get that all put into place so that by the end of 2027 or so, we're ready to go into a operational environment that's all based on in a cloud system or systems. And that's the basics of the presentation. So I really look forward to any questions, and I know Frank's going to grill me. So
thanks, Scott. Appreciate your presentation there. Everybody, please stay on for the discussion and ask any questions you have. We're especially encouraging participation from our field offices and regional headquarters. Please put your name in, your full name in if you have questions into the chat. Lee has posted a feedback link. So if you have a short feedback, if you have time to do that, please take that short survey. A couple other things, next week or a week from today, Thursday, February 2nd, 12 o'clock, Dr. Amy Huff, who's Senior Research Scientist from IM Systems Group, will discuss detecting and tracking smoke and blowing dust using the ABI aerosol detection product. Also, if you have any questions about anything related to this or the Tower S team, please contact Lee Byerly or Kashad Bowman for questions, ranging from anything really about the SBC or configuration of satellite projects. So let's move directly into the questions here. Here's the first question. Could you describe how cloud knowledge acquisition will be handled, i.e. support, development, and operations? This question is from Warwick Moran.
Sure. So what we have done already is we have in the middle of 2022, well, early in 2022, we issued an RFQ and put out a contract announcement for proposals. And it was geared toward the company having more cloud knowledge than AWIPS knowledge. So we were looking for a company that has done a large migration project before, where we, the weather service, will worry about the quote business logic, and it's their responsibility to look at the how-tos about setting up cloud resources, turning things into microservices with the business logic embedded in that. So we've done that analysis of the contractors. We selected somebody, and the contract was awarded at the end of November. And they have the necessary skills to do the cloud work. They've demonstrated already with the few deliverables that they've made already that they know what they're doing from that standpoint. And we're going to bring the business logic and help them figure out the actual code that needs to be embedded within that framework.
It's possible that.
Thanks, Scott. We've got another question for you.
Jordan was trying to say something.
Oh, I just didn't know if Frank was there. Okay, go ahead, Frank.
Okay. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, sure. I'm cutting in and out, but I'll do my best here.
Right.
Question from Joe Fiore. It seems like perhaps NOAA weather radio will be separate in the future.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting question, Joe. So a couple of years ago, the Office of Dissemination started a project where they want to make the weather radios IP based rather than using basically telephone lines. So if that happens, then, or I should say when that happens, because it is a project that's ongoing, theoretically you could address any radio from anywhere, including a cloud-based system. So all of this is working hand in hand, and it's some of the things that we need to make sure that the projects are progressing so that we all kind of finish at the same time. Still there, Frank?
Okay, another question for you, Scott.
Lots
of them are coming in. I think you're cutting out, Frank. I can.
Frank, maybe we'll just let Scott start to go through the list here of
Okay.
questions coming in.
All right. So I see one from Dirk. Any idea how you gather volunteers for testing? Not to any great detail, but the idea would be kind of how we've always solicited volunteers for beta testing, for testing of hazard services, testing other things that just happen in the AWIPS world. So as we get farther along in this project, the AWIPS program will probably have more webinars ourselves. We'll open it up to the regions first, and then have them start selecting people or getting volunteers from the regional level. If that doesn't work, then I'll be sending something out probably. All right. Shane. Once field is fully spun up and in, for example, severe weather operations for several hours, what is the expected WAN bandwidth requirement to ensure AWIPS functions well? So what we've been finding is that, or let me step back a second. So what we've done in the past is we've set up complete standalone systems. So we have EDX and Cave running in the cloud. So all you're sending back is the picture of what your desktop looks like. So the bandwidth requirements for that are very low, and that's what the IMETs have found superior to the thin client, which requires a lot of bandwidth to send the data. So what we're looking at for the cloud-based full operational system is to do basically the same thing, have all these data services running in the background, have Cave instances that run also in the cloud, and therefore the bandwidth needed to transfer data between Cave and the services would be handled all within the cloud environment, and all you're getting back is screen desktop display. Now, so the bandwidth is probably lower than what we have today, or the needs would be lower than what we need today, but the reliability goes up because you can't have it cut out while you're in the middle of looking at your desktop. So that's where the network has to be looked at and examined to see if we have the ability to set up redundancy and things like that. And that's where that big project's going to come in. Okay. Dan, so can you describe how in the end users would access AWIPS? Would we continue to use LX type hardware? And how will RFCs be handled? Yes. Okay. So I kind of got into that. So the plan is to run Cave in a cloud, on the cloud itself. But you can use as your platform to get to the cloud, you could use a laptop, you could use an LX or some other type of tower desktop system. The idea would be, though, that when in an office environment, you might have more monitors available to you than if you're out as an IMET would be with their laptop at a site. So depending on how you want to use the system and how much screen real estate you need, that would kind of tell us how to set up the user side. As far as the RFCs and chips, we are working with OWP on getting the chips side of the software to work in a cloud environment under the current lift and shift. As we move into the microservice realm, the idea would be to have chips running, but put an interface. This is my general idea right now. Put a microservice interface in front of it so that it can be accessed, and we could set up chips as maybe as a service or as something that could be used in some manner like that. And we'll have to work with OWP and the chips contractor to make that all happen. And we've kind of started doing that already. Willie has a quick one. Yes, I'm going to share the slides after we're all done with Kashad and Lee, and they'll get those out. Okay.
Maybe go to that last question from Warren Blyer, and then we can wrap it up.
Okay. I've heard rumors that some one or two WFOs are presently using AWIPS in the cloud and thus ops staff able to telework. Any truth to this? If they are using it, it's not in an operational sense. We have had a few folks using development systems to do Python work, to do other development tasks. But if anyone's using it operationally, that's that's not something that was made known to me. So.
All right, and maybe just one final question, since this is the Satellite Book Club. What does this mean for satellite imagery and AWIPS?
So I have some ideas that I have to work out with the contractor doing the development work. NESDIS currently has all of the satellite data in the Amazon cloud storage. And it would be really nice to just access that directly rather than pulling it over, storing it for ourselves, taking up a lot of disk space for that. So the idea would be that we could have access to every piece of satellite data that exists or will exist on demand as needed without predetermining exactly what you need and setting up a data flow. Does that kind of answer your question, Jordan?
Oh, sure. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more talks about this, Scott.
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there today, Scott. I know you have to get to another meeting here at the bottom of the hour, and we got a lot of folks that I'm sure have busy schedules as well. So really appreciate you joining us for the Satellite Book Club today. Not only you, Scott, but also all of the attendees. And thanks to Frank for volunteering to be our moderator. I know that, as you saw in the chat, there are quite a few sites were having some internet connection issues during this session. So we are going to make the slides and the recording available. So if you weren't able to catch it all, you can go back and review the sections that you missed. As has been mentioned, next Thursday, February 2nd, it won't be Scott again, Groundhog Day reference. We are going to have Amy Huff talking about tracking smoke and blowing dust using the ABI aerosol detection product. If you have any questions in the meantime about the Satellite Book Club or need to contact the Tower S team, such as Lee Byerly, Kashad Bowman, John Evans, you can reach them via email or through NWS chat with the room Tower-S. So with that, we'll close it out for today. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Thank you for your time and hope to see you again next week. Take care, everybody.